Wyoming Territory, 1878. The autumn wind swept across the open range, carrying with it the scent of pine and promise. Isaiah Walker leaned against the weathered fence post of the Diamond S Ranch, his youthful face hardened beyond his 24 years. The golden light of sunset caught in his sandy brown hair as his eyes, green as spring grass, surveyed the land that had taken everything from him. 3 years of driving cattle across hostile territory had taught him one immutable truth. Love was a luxury a cowboy couldn't afford. The frontier demanded blood, sweat, and solitude. Anything else was just asking for heartbreak. Wyoming ain't a place for sentiments, he muttered to himself, pushing away from the fence. Just survival. Isaiah adjusted his Stetson and headed toward the bunkhouse. His lean, athletic frame moved with the easy grace of a man who spent most of his life in the saddle. The light stubble on his jaw couldn't hide the handsome lines of his face, though he paid little mind to his appearance. What good was being handsome when you planned to live and die alone? The Diamond S needed another season of his skills before he'd have enough saved to stake his own claim. A small parcel somewhere remote, just him and the wilderness. That was the plan, the only plan that made sense in a world where attachment meant vulnerability, and vulnerability got you killed faster than a rattlesnake bite. Walker, the foreman's voice boomed across the yard. Boss wants to see you. Isaiah nodded, changing course toward the main house. He'd been with the Diamond S long enough to earn the respect of William Stephens, the aging ranch owner whose failing health kept him mostly confined to the house these days. Whatever the old man wanted, Isaiah would oblige. Stephens had given him work when others wouldn't take a chance on a drifter with no references and haunted eyes. The main house stood 2 stories tall, a testament to Stephens' success in carving civilization from the wilderness. Isaiah removed his hat before knocking, running a hand through his hair in a futile attempt to tame it. The door swung open, and Isaiah's carefully constructed world tilted on its axis. She stood framed in the doorway, 19 years old and radiant as sunrise. Honey blonde hair cascaded in waves past her shoulders, framing a face that belonged in the fancy portrait studios back east. Her blue eyes, clear as mountain lakes, widened slightly at the sight of him. The blue calico dress she wore, modest yet flattering, complemented her fair complexion and the gentle curve of her figure. You must be Mr. Walker, she said, her voice carrying a hint of eastern refinement that seemed out of place in the rough-hewn Wyoming landscape. Grandfather is expecting you. Please come in. Grandfather. Isaiah followed her into the house, his boots suddenly feeling too heavy, too loud on the polished wooden floors. He'd heard whispers that Stephens' granddaughter was coming to stay, but he'd paid little attention to ranch gossip. Isaiah, my boy, William Stephens called from his chair by the fireplace. Come meet my granddaughter, Miss Sophia Stephens, just arrived from Boston yesterday. Isaiah nodded stiffly, ma'am. Sophia's smile didn't falter at his curtness. A pleasure, Mr. Walker. Grandfather speaks highly of you. Sophia will be staying indefinitely, Stephens explained, his weathered face brightening with pride. Her parents, God rest them, left her with a fine education but little else. I've convinced her to bring her modern ideas out west, where they might do some good. Isaiah's jaw tightened. Modern ideas from Boston had no place on a working ranch. The frontier had its own harsh education, one that would likely send the delicate Miss Stephens scurrying back east within a fortnight. Isaiah will show you the operation tomorrow, Sophia, Stephens continued. He knows this ranch better than anyone save myself. Sir, I've got to move the herd too, Isaiah began. Jenkins can handle it. I need my best man showing Sophia the ropes. She's the future of this ranch after all. The words landed like a physical blow. This slip of a girl from Boston was to inherit everything the old man had built. Isaiah felt his plans crumbling. If Stephens was grooming his granddaughter to take over, there'd be no need for a foreman like him once the old man passed. Of course, sir, Isaiah managed, though his throat felt like he'd swallowed sand. I promise not to be a burden, Mr. Walker, Sophia said, meeting his eyes directly. Something in her gaze, a quiet determination that belied her genteel appearance, caught him off guard. Dawn, then, Isaiah said flatly. We start at dawn. When Isaiah arrived at the stables the next morning, the eastern sky barely tinged with the first hint of daylight. He was stunned to find Sophia already there. She'd exchanged yesterday's calico for a practical riding skirt and blouse, her hair neatly braided down her back. You're early, he observed, unable to keep the surprise from his voice. Grandfather said you start at dawn, she replied simply. In Boston, punctuality is a virtue. Out here it's survival, Isaiah countered, beginning to saddle his chestnut gelding. He expected her to wait for assistance with her own mount, but instead she confidently approached a spirited black mare, saddle in hand. "This one is midnight, correct?" Sophia asked. "Grandfather mentioned she has spirit." "Too much for a lady," Isaiah warned. "Take the bay instead." Sophia smiled, a glint of challenge in her eyes. "I've been riding since childhood, Mr. Walker. Spirited horses and I understand each other." Before he could protest further, she had expertly saddled the mare and swung herself into the saddle with practiced grace. Isaiah found himself momentarily speechless. Perhaps Boston ladies weren't as delicate as he'd assumed. The morning light revealed the Diamond S in all its rugged glory as they rode. 6,000 acres of prime Wyoming rangeland nestled against the foothills of the mountains. Isaiah pointed out landmarks and boundaries, expecting Sophia's interest to wane. Instead, she asked intelligent questions about grazing rotation, water rights, and breeding programs. "You know more about ranching than I expected," he admitted as they paused atop a ridge overlooking a valley where several hundred cattle grazed. "My mother grew up here before marrying and moving east," Sophia explained. "She made certain I knew about my Western heritage, though I admit books can only teach so much. I'm eager to learn the practical aspects." "Why come now?" Isaiah asked bluntly. "A woman with your education could find a suitable husband in Boston. Why bury yourself in the wilderness?" Something flickered across Sophia's face, a shadow of grief or perhaps determination. "Boston society has little use for a penniless orphan, regardless of education. Besides, this land is in my blood. My grandfather needs me, and I need a fresh beginning." There was more to her story, Isaiah sensed, but he didn't press. Everyone who came west carried secrets. His own past weighed heavy enough. A sudden gunshot echoed across the valley, startling both riders. Isaiah instinctively moved his horse between Sophia and the direction of the shot, his hand dropping to the revolver at his hip. "Rustlers?" Sophia asked, her voice steady despite the alarm in her eyes. "Possibly," Isaiah said grimly, "or hunters where they shouldn't be. Stay close." They rode cautiously toward the source of the shot, following a dry creek bed that provided some cover. As they rounded a bend, Isaiah spotted 3 men attempting to separate a small group of Diamond S cattle from the main herd. "Rustlers," he confirmed in a low voice. "We're outnumbered, we should head back and gather the men." "They'll be gone by then," Sophia observed. "Those are the prize Hereford's grandfather imported last year." Isaiah weighed their options. The rustlers hadn't spotted them yet, giving them the element of surprise. Still, the risk was considerable. "I can create a distraction," Sophia suggested. "Draw their attention while you circle behind." "Absolutely not," Isaiah hissed. "I'm not putting you in danger." "I'm already in danger," she countered logically. "And I'm not proposing to charge them, just ride visibly across that far ridge. When they spot me, they'll assume I'm alone." "A woman out for a morning ride." Isaiah wanted to refuse, but her plan made tactical sense. "At the first sign of trouble, you ride hard for the ranch, promise me." "I promise," she agreed, then surprised him by briefly touching his arm. "Be careful, Mr. Walker." Before he could respond, she had turned her horse and was trotting toward the ridge. Isaiah watched for a moment, then began circling wide to approach the rustlers from behind, keeping low in the saddle. Sophia performed her part perfectly. The rustlers spotted her, and 2 broke off to investigate the potential witness while 1 remained with the cattle. Isaiah used their distraction to close the distance, then drew his revolver and fired a warning shot in the air. "Diamond S hands are coming up behind me," he bluffed loudly. "Drop your weapons." The rustler near the cattle panicked, firing wildly in Isaiah's direction. Isaiah returned fire with more precision, striking the man's shoulder. The other 2, seeing their companion hit, lost their nerve and retreated, firing a few hasty shots that went wide before galloping away. The wounded rustler surrendered, throwing down his gun. Isaiah quickly disarmed and bound him, then looked up to signal Sophia that it was safe. She was nowhere to be seen. Cold fear gripped Isaiah's chest. Had the fleeing rustlers taken her? Had she been hit by a stray bullet? He secured the captured rustler to a tree and mounted his horse, scanning desperately for any sign of her. "Miss Stephens," he called, abandoning caution. "Sophia." A movement caught his eye, midnight trotting back toward the cattle, Sophia still in the saddle. Relief washed over him, quickly followed by confusion. Instead of fleeing as instructed, she had circled around to prevent the cattle from scattering during the gunfire. She was actually herding them back together with surprising skill. "You were supposed to ride for help," Isaiah admonished when he reached her, unable to keep the concern from his voice. "The cattle were bolting," she explained calmly, though her face was flushed with excitement or fear. "I couldn't let them scatter into rustler territory." "You could have been killed." "So could you," she countered. "Yet here we both are." Isaiah stared at her, seeing her truly for the first time. Beneath the refined exterior beat the heart of a woman with true frontier courage. Something shifted in his chest, a feeling he immediately tried to suppress. "We should get back," he said gruffly. "The other rustlers might return with reinforcements." As they rode side by side, the captured rustler secured on a spare mount, Isaiah found himself casting surreptitious glances at Sophia. The morning sun gilded her profile, highlighting the determined set of her jaw and the intelligence in her eyes. She was nothing like the fragile eastern flower he had expected. In fact, she was nothing like any woman he had ever met. The realization was as unwelcome as it was undeniable. Sophia Stephens was dangerous, not because she was weak, but because she was strong. The kind of strength that could make a man forget why he had chosen solitude in the first place. News of the rustler confrontation spread quickly through the ranch. William Stephens was equal parts proud of his granddaughter's courage and horrified at the danger she had faced. Isaiah found himself unexpectedly defending her actions to the old rancher. "She kept her head," Isaiah admitted. "Most men would have panicked in that situation." "She's her mother's daughter," Stephens said with a sad smile, "stubborn as the day is long." Over the following weeks, Sophia became a fixture at Isaiah's side, learning every aspect of ranch operations. Despite his initial resistance, Isaiah found himself impressed by her quick mind and willingness to tackle any task, no matter how difficult or unglamorous. She mended fences, helped treat sick cattle, and even assisted with a difficult calving that left her covered in blood in afterbirth but triumphant. The hands, initially skeptical of the Boston lady, gradually accepted her as one of their own. Isaiah observed this transformation with a growing unease. His plan to save money and move on seemed less urgent with each passing day. One evening, as summer faded toward autumn, Isaiah found Sophia sitting alone on the porch, a letter in her hands and tears on her cheeks. He nearly retreated, uncomfortable with feminine emotions, but something in her solitary figure called to him. "Bad news?" he asked awkwardly, remaining at the bottom of the porch steps. Sophia quickly wiped her eyes. "Not exactly. An old friend from Boston is getting married. It just reminded me of things." "You miss the city?" Isaiah guessed, surprised by the hollow feeling the thought gave him. "Sometimes," she admitted, "but not in the way you think. I miss knowing my place in the world. In Boston, everything was defined. Here I'm building something new, and sometimes that feels terrifying," Isaiah finished for her. Their eyes met in shared understanding. For a moment, the walls Isaiah had built around himself felt paper-thin. "Would you sit with me a while?" Sophia asked quietly. "The evening is lovely." Against his better judgment, Isaiah climbed the steps and settled into the chair beside hers. They sat in companionable silence as darkness fell and stars emerged, brilliant and countless in the clear Wyoming sky. "Do you ever get lonely, Mr. Walker?" Sophia asked suddenly. "Isaiah," he corrected her softly. "After all we've been through, you might as well use my given name." "Isaiah," she repeated, the name sounding different in her voice. "You didn't answer my question." He considered lying, then found he couldn't. "Sometimes, but loneliness is safer than the alternative." "What happened to make you believe that?" Her question was gentle but direct, like everything about her. Isaiah stared into the darkness. He hadn't spoken of his past to anyone, but here, with the night wrapped around them like a blanket, the words found their way out. "I had a family once, a wife, Sarah, a baby on the way. We had a small homestead in Montana Territory. One night I was away helping a neighbor with a barn raising. Outlaws came." His voice grew tight. "They burned everything, took what little we had." "Sarah." Sophia's hand found his in the darkness. "I'm so sorry." "That was 5 years ago. I learned then that loving someone means giving the world a weapon to use against you." "I won't make that mistake again." "So you chose to stop living to avoid the pain of loss," Sophia observed, her voice free of judgment. "I chose survival," Isaiah corrected. "Existing isn't the same as living," she replied softly. "My parents died in a carriage accident 3 years ago. I could have closed myself off, but that would have dishonored their memory. They taught me that love is worth the risk of loss." Isaiah had no answer for that. Her fingers remained intertwined with his, warm and alive, as the night deepened around them. The turning point came in late October. A sudden blizzard struck without warning, catching a herd and 3 hands in the high pasture. Isaiah organized a rescue party, insisting that Sophia remain at the ranch house despite her protests. "Your grandfather needs you here," he told her firmly. "We'll bring them back." The rescue mission proved more treacherous than anticipated. Blinding snow and howling winds disoriented even the most experienced riders. Isaiah and his men located the stranded cowboys, but as they attempted to return, an avalanche cut them off from the main trail. With night falling and temperatures plummeting, they were forced to seek shelter in an abandoned line shack miles from their intended route. Back at the ranch, when the rescue party failed to return, Sophia took matters into her own hands. Against her grandfather's explicit instructions, she gathered supplies, recruited 2 experienced hands, and set out to find them. "That girl will be the death of me," William Stephens lamented as he watched them disappear into the storm. Sophia had grown up reading her mother's journals about Wyoming weather patterns. She reasoned that Isaiah, facing an avalanche on the main trail, would seek the next best shelter, the old line shack near Cooper's Ridge. While the others searched the main trail, she led her small party directly to the ridge. The storm had intensified by the time they located the shack. Through the blinding snow, Sophia could make out a faint light from within. Relief washed over her as she dismounted and trudged through knee-deep drifts to the door. Isaiah's face when he opened the door to her knock was a study in conflicting emotions: shock, relief, anger, and something deeper that made Sophia's heart quicken despite the cold. "What in God's name are you doing out in this?" he demanded, pulling her inside. "Saving you, apparently," she replied, stamping snow from her boots. "We brought supplies and fresh horses." The cramped shack barely accommodated all of them, but no one complained about the close quarters given the alternative. As the others settled in, sharing food and coffee from the supplies Sophia had brought, Isaiah pulled her aside. "You risked your life coming out here," he said in a low voice. "Why would you do something so foolish?" Sophia met his gaze steadily. "The same reason you did when you went looking for the missing hands, because that's what you do for people you care about." Her words hung in the air between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. Isaiah's expression softened, the anger giving way to something more vulnerable. "Sophia, he began, then stopped as one of the hands called for his attention. The moment passed, but something had shifted between them. That night, as everyone huddled for warmth in the tiny shack, Isaiah found himself keeping watch, his eyes repeatedly drawn to Sophia's sleeping form. The thought of what might have happened to her in the storm filled him with a terror he hadn't felt since losing Sarah. He had tried so hard to remain detached, to honor his vow of solitude. Yet somehow this remarkable woman had breached his defenses, awakening feelings he thought long dead. The realization terrified him more than any blizzard or outlaw ever could. When the storm cleared 2 days later, they returned to the ranch to find William Stephens beside himself with worry and relief. The old man embraced his granddaughter fiercely, then surprised everyone by pulling Isaiah into an equally emotional embrace. "You brought her back safe," he said, his voice thick. "I won't forget that." "Actually, sir," Isaiah corrected him, "she found us, saved us all, truth be told." Stephens looked between them, a knowing expression crossing his weathered features. "Well now," he murmured. "Isn't that something?" As winter settled over the Diamond S, Isaiah found himself increasingly drawn to the main house in the evenings. What began as meetings to discuss ranch business evolved into long conversations by the fire. Sophia introduced Isaiah to her favorite books, while he shared stories of his travels across the frontier. Sometimes they simply sat in comfortable silence, the unspoken connection between them growing stronger with each passing day. William Stephens observed this development with quiet satisfaction. One evening, as Isaiah prepared to return to the bunkhouse, the old rancher detained him. "Stay a moment, son," he requested, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey once Sophia had retired. "We need to talk." Isaiah accepted the drink, wariness creeping into his expression. "Sir." "I'm not blind, Isaiah. I see how you look at my granddaughter, and how she looks at you." Isaiah stared into his glass, unable to deny the truth but unwilling to confirm it. "Miss Stephens deserves better than a homeless cowboy with nothing to his name." Is that how you see yourself? Stephens asked, surprise evident in his voice. You're the most capable man I've ever known. This ranch has thrived under your management. I appreciate the compliment, sir, but I'm dying, Isaiah. The blunt statement silenced whatever protest Isaiah had been about to make. The doctor gives me a year at most. Sophia doesn't know yet. I'm sorry, Isaiah said sincerely, his respect for the old rancher evident in his voice. I didn't tell you to get your sympathy, Stephens continued. I told you because I need to know my granddaughter and this ranch will be cared for when I'm gone. Sophia has the heart and the mind for ranching, but she needs someone who understands this land, someone who will stand beside her through the hard times ahead. Isaiah set down his glass, his hands suddenly unsteady. Are you suggesting? I'm suggesting nothing, the old man replied with a hint of his former vigor. I'm telling you to stop hiding from life. If you care for her, and I believe you do, then be man enough to do something about it. The conversation haunted Isaiah for days afterward. He threw himself into work, avoiding the main house and by extension Sophia. But avoidance proved impossible on a ranch in winter, particularly when an unexpected Christmas Eve invitation arrived from William Stephens, requesting Isaiah's presence for dinner. Isaiah arrived at the main house that evening to find it transformed. Candles glowed in every window, and pine boughs festooned with ribbons decorated the main rooms. Sophia greeted him wearing a deep green dress that brought out the gold highlights in her hair, which she had styled in an elegant arrangement that framed her face. You look, Isaiah paused, searching for a word adequate to the vision before him. Presentable, Sophia suggested with a teasing smile. Beautiful, he finished honestly. Too beautiful for a ranch hand's company. Fortunately, you're more than a ranch hand, she replied, taking his arm and guiding him inside. Your family. The word pierced Isaiah's heart with unexpected sweetness. Family. How long had it been since he belonged anywhere to anyone? Dinner was a surprisingly intimate affair. Isaiah had expected the other hands to be present, but found only himself, Sophia, and William at the table. They enjoyed a feast of roast goose, potatoes, and freshly baked bread, with apple pie for dessert. As they ate, William regaled them with stories of Christmases past, including tales of Sophia's mother as a young girl. Isaiah found himself laughing more than he had in years, the weight of his solitude temporarily lifted in the warm glow of this family celebration. After dinner, William excused himself, claiming fatigue but winking conspiratorially at Isaiah as he departed. Left alone with Sophia, Isaiah felt suddenly awkward, aware of how dangerously comfortable he had become in her presence. I have something for you, Sophia said, breaking the silence. She retrieved a small package from beneath the Christmas tree in the corner. It isn't much, but... Isaiah accepted the gift with hands that weren't quite steady. I didn't bring anything for you, he admitted, embarrassed. Your company is gift enough, she assured him. Open it. Inside the carefully wrapped package, Isaiah found a leather-bound journal, its cover tooled with his initials. Opening it, he discovered the pages were blank save for an inscription on the first leaf, written in Sophia's elegant hand. For the stories you carry, that deserve to be remembered. Sophia, Isaiah began, emotion threatening to close his throat. You carry so much inside you, she said softly. I thought perhaps writing it down might ease the burden. The perceptiveness of her gift, the way she had seen into his very soul and offered exactly what he needed, undid him. Isaiah felt the walls he had so carefully constructed beginning to crumble. Thank you, he managed, his voice rough with feeling. There's something else, Sophia continued, her own voice less certain now. Grandfather has asked me to tell you that he's changing his will. He wants to make you a partner in the Diamond S. Isaiah stared at her, stunned. A partner, but the ranch is your inheritance. And I want you to share it, she said simply. You love this land as much as I do. Together we could make it thrive for generations. The implication of her words hung in the air between them. This wasn't merely a business proposition. It was an invitation to a shared future, one Isaiah had not dared to imagine possible. Before he could respond, hoofbeats thundered into the yard, followed by urgent knocking at the door. Isaiah instinctively moved between Sophia and the potential threat as she opened the door to reveal Jenkins, one of their hands, his face grim. Rustlers hit the north pasture, he reported breathlessly. They've taken 30 head and shot Mason when he tried to stop them. Isaiah's mind shifted immediately to action. How bad is Mason hurt? Shoulder wound, not fatal. Doc's with him now. Gather the men, Isaiah ordered. We ride in 15 minutes. Isaiah, wait, Sophia said as Jenkins hurried to obey. This feels wrong. The rustlers we caught last month said they never hit the same ranch twice. These could be different rustlers, Isaiah reasoned, already gathering his coat and gun belt. Or a trap, Sophia countered. What if they're trying to draw our men away from the ranch? Isaiah paused, considering her words. The rustlers they'd captured had indeed been part of a larger gang, one rumored to be led by the notorious Jake Harmon, who had sworn vengeance on the Diamond S for his brother's capture and imprisonment. You think they're coming here? Isaiah realized, cold dread settling in his stomach. I think we need to prepare for that possibility, Sophia confirmed. Send some men after the cattle but keep others here. Isaiah nodded, impressed again by her tactical thinking. Stay inside and lock the doors. I'll position men around the house and warn your grandfather. The next hours passed in tense vigilance. Isaiah divided the hands, sending half after the stolen cattle while positioning the rest strategically around the ranch buildings. He personally checked every window and door of the main house, ensuring they were secure. You think Sophia's right? William asked, his rifle across his knees as they waited in the darkened study. She usually is, Isaiah replied with grudging admiration. And it makes sense. Harmon's not known for subtlety, but he is known for grudges. Midnight came and went without incident. Isaiah began to wonder if they had overreacted until a muffled cry from the direction of the bunkhouse shattered the silence. A moment later, flames erupted from the structure. It's a diversion, Isaiah realized. They want to draw us out. Even as he spoke, gunshots rang out as hidden attackers opened fire on the hands rushing to combat the fire. In the chaos and darkness, it was impossible to tell how many assailants they faced. Stay here, Isaiah instructed William and Sophia. Barricade the door behind me. I'm coming with you, Sophia insisted, already checking the load in her father's old revolver. Absolutely not, both men replied in unison. This house has defensible positions, Sophia argued. Grandfather can hold it while we help our people. They're being slaughtered out there, Isaiah. The anguish in her voice mirrored Isaiah's own. The hands weren't just employees, they were friends, men who had become the closest thing to family he'd known since losing Sarah. William, Isaiah deferred to the older man. Stevens looked between them, then nodded grimly. She's right, go. I'll hold the house. They slipped out through the kitchen door, keeping to the shadows as they circled toward the burning bunkhouse. Isaiah's mind raced, calculating angles and positions based on the muzzle flashes he could see. At least 6 attackers, maybe more, had the hands pinned down with little cover. The root cellar, Sophia whispered, tugging his arm. We can use the tunnel. Isaiah had forgotten about the old tunnel that connected the root cellar to the barn, a precaution William's father had built during more dangerous times. It would allow them to outflank the attackers. They moved quickly to the cellar doors, descending into darkness before lighting a small lantern Sophia had brought. The earthen tunnel was low, forcing them to crouch as they hurried through it, emerging behind a false wall in the barn's tack room. From this position, they had a clear view of 3 attackers using the corner of the barn as cover while they fired on the trapped ranch hands. Isaiah signaled for Sophia to remain hidden, then took careful aim. His first shot caught one of the rustlers in the shoulder, spinning him around. The second shot went wide as the other 2 men scrambled for new positions. Return fire splintered the wood near Isaiah's head, forcing him to duck. What happened next would remain seared in Isaiah's memory forever. As he reloaded, Sophia suddenly darted from cover, firing 2 quick shots that drove the rustlers further back. Her distraction gave the pinned ranch hands the opportunity they needed to advance to better positions. But one of the rustlers, desperate and wounded, spotted Sophia. He raised his rifle, taking aim at her exposed figure. Sophia, Isaiah's warning cry tore from his throat as he lunged toward her. Time seemed to slow. Isaiah saw the rustler's finger tighten on the trigger, saw Sophia begin to turn. Knew with terrible certainty that he wouldn't reach her in time. In that moment, faced with losing her, Isaiah Walker confronted the truth he had been denying for months. He loved her. Loved her courage, her intelligence, her gentle strength. Loved the way she had breathed life back into his shattered heart, and he would not lose her as he had lost Sarah. With a final desperate surge, Isaiah reached Sophia, shoving her roughly aside as the rifle cracked. White-hot pain exploded in his chest as the bullet found him instead of its intended target. He heard Sophia scream as he collapsed, his blood staining the hay-strewn floor of the barn. Chaos erupted around them. The ranch hands, seeing Isaiah fall, charged the remaining rustlers with renewed fury. Gunfire echoed, shouts and curses filling the night air. Through it all, Isaiah was aware only of Sophia kneeling beside him, her hands pressing desperately against his wound. "Stay with me," she begged, tears streaming down her face. "Isaiah, please stay with me." He tried to speak, to tell her what he had realized in that final desperate moment, but darkness was closing in too quickly. His last conscious thought was regret, not for taking the bullet, but for waiting too long to admit his feelings. Isaiah Walker drifted in a gray haze between life and death for 3 days. Fragments of awareness came and went. The doctor's grave face, William Stephens' rumbling prayers, and always Sophia's voice, sometimes reading, sometimes singing softly, sometimes simply talking to him as though he could hear every word. And perhaps he could, because it was her voice that finally drew him back from the brink. Her fingers entwined with his, her tear-dampened cheek pressed against his hand as she whispered, "I love you. Please don't leave me when I've just found you." Isaiah's fingers twitched in response, then tightened weakly around hers. Sophia's head shot up, her eyes wide with hope as she saw his eyelids flutter. "Isaiah," she breathed, scarcely daring to believe. "Water," he managed, his voice a rasp. After he had taken a few sips, Isaiah found his gaze locked with Sophia's. The nakedness of emotion in her eyes, fear, hope, and undisguised love, left no room for his usual defenses. "You saved my life," she said softly. "You saved mine long before that bullet," he replied, summoning strength for the words he needed to say. "Sophia, I love you. I tried not to. God knows I tried, but loving you, it's like breathing. I can't stop and I don't want to try anymore." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. "Then don't," she whispered. When William Stephens entered the room moments later, he found them that way, foreheads touching, hands clasped, worlds of meaning passing between them without words. The old rancher smiled, a weight lifting from his shoulders. Whatever time he had left, he could face it knowing his granddaughter and his legacy would be cared for. Isaiah's recovery was slow but steady. The bullet had missed his heart by inches, broken a rib, and exited his back without hitting his spine, what the doctor called the luckiest unlucky shot he'd ever treated. During those weeks of recovery, as winter gave way to the first tentative signs of spring, Isaiah and Sophia planned their future together. William Stephens, his own health declining more rapidly than expected, insisted on a wedding as soon as Isaiah could stand at the altar. "I aim to dance at my granddaughter's wedding," he declared, though they all knew it might be one of his last acts. The ceremony took place in late April, with the ranch hands as witnesses and a circuit preacher officiating. Sophia wore her mother's wedding dress, altered to fit her slimmer figure with wildflowers in her hair. Isaiah, still thinner than before his injury but standing tall and proud, wore a new suit ordered from Cheyenne. Their vows were simple but profound, each promising to cherish the other through whatever challenges the frontier might bring. When Isaiah kissed his bride, sealing their commitment before God and their makeshift family, he felt the last of his defenses crumble. The fear that had driven him for so long, the belief that loving meant inevitable loss, gave way to a deeper truth. Love was worth the risk, worth any risk. William Stephens did indeed dance at the wedding, though the effort clearly cost him. 2 weeks later he passed peacefully in his sleep, secure in the knowledge that his beloved granddaughter and the ranch he had built would thrive under Isaiah and Sophia's stewardship. The Diamond S flourished in the years that followed. Isaiah and Sophia combined his practical knowledge with her innovative ideas, expanding their breeding program and implementing modern ranching techniques that set new standards in Wyoming territory. Their reputation grew, attracting quality hands and fair prices for their superior cattle. But their greatest achievement came one snowy December night, when Sophia gave birth to twins, a boy they named William after her grandfather and a girl they called Sarah, honoring the wife Isaiah had lost but never forgotten. As Isaiah held his newborn children, with Sophia watching tiredly but radiantly from their bed, he marveled at how completely his life had transformed. The man who had once vowed to live and die alone now found himself surrounded by love and family, his heart full to bursting. "What are you thinking?" Sophia asked softly, reaching for his hand. Isaiah looked at her, at the woman who had healed his broken spirit and given him a reason to believe in second chances. "I'm thinking about what happened," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "How one bullet changed everything." "Not the bullet," Sophia corrected gently. "Your choice. You chose to love despite your fear. That's what changed everything." She was right, as she so often was. It hadn't been the rustlers' attack or Isaiah's injury that had transformed their lives. It had been his decision to open his heart again, to risk the pain of loss for the joy of connection. As he settled beside her on the bed, their sleeping infants cradled between them, Isaiah Walker, once a lonely cowboy determined to remain isolated, acknowledged the most profound truth he had learned. The frontier's greatest challenge wasn't surviving its physical hardships, but daring to love fully despite its uncertainties. In meeting that challenge, he had gained far more than he had ever risked losing. Outside, snow continued to fall on the Diamond S Ranch, blanketing the land that had witnessed both their struggles and their triumphs. Within the warmth of their home, Isaiah and Sophia Walker held the future in their arms, their love a shelter against whatever storms might come, a love that had left a lasting impact on the cowboy and the heart he had gained.